What do you attribute the exaggerations to? So the people that say, this is existential threat. We have 20 years to do something. We have 30 years to cut whatever emissions to zero. Again, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a scientist by
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
in my day-to-day life. So I'm just curious. I'm coming from a curious point of view where I'm saying, well, why these exaggerations?
So let's start with the media, which maybe you have a better feel for since you're doing a podcast. The media have dedicated climate reporters who are usually not trained scientists at all. And unless they write dramatic stories, they're not going to get on the front page or prominent on the opening web page. And so you see reports all the time of dramatic weather events, which in the end have very little, if anything, to do with climate. Remember, climate is a 30-year average of weather. Not only the averages, but the extremes get averaged as well. So what happens this year or next year or 5 years ago, unless there's a clear trend over a decade at least, it's not climate, it's weather. But if we now go to the government, I quote in the book a line, and I won't get it right exactly, but from H.L. Mencken, who was a journalist in the early 20th century, who said, the purpose of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed by a series of threats, most of them imaginary, so that they're clamoring to be led to safety. And whether it's immigration, whether it's COVID, whether it's cybersecurity or climate, these are all things that politicians can use in order to garner support for action. Some of them are legitimate. I in no sense doubt that COVID wasn't a very serious threat, and we can argue about how they dealt with it and so on. But crises are good for governments, and whether it's real or imaginary, it hardly matters to the politicians. Then you get to then you get to the NGOs, right? 350.org, Union of Concerned Scientists. If you've built a major part of your organization around the threat of climate change, and suddenly when you read the reports, you realize, oh, this is not such a big deal. What do? You hype the threat.